On March 24th, India's bustling streets went silent as Prime Minister Modi set an immediate 3-week lockdown to combat the coronavirus pandemic.
आज रात 12 बजे से घरों से बाहर निकलने पर पूरी तरह पाबंदी लगाई जा रही है.
As cases of the virus continued to rise, a mass lockdown was implemented, forcing over 1 billion people indoors. India's highly dense population, paired with its weak public health system, could easily overwhelm the best efforts to contain the spread of the virus. However, the immediate lockdown came with a price.
In India, thousands of migrant workers
desperate to reach their homes in rural India.
Exodus that hasn't been seen in India in decades.
People were given only 4 hours' notice to get home before bus and train links closed. Streets around the Indian capital Delhi were quickly filled with thousands of migrant workers, leaving many stranded and facing tough decisions. Though the virus has shaken India's poorest, they fear something far more imminent: starvation. India's workforce is primarily made up of the informal sector. They can be rickshaw drivers, milkmen, or construction workers who get their food and shelter directly from their employers. They are also daily wage earners, which means that they only get paid for the work they do on the day. This can be as little as $3, and many of them buy food or pay rent with this wage and have no savings to fall back on. The problem is nearly 81% of India's workforce employed in this informal sector, and many travel to neighbouring states in search of work, like the busy capital of New Delhi. So when a government lockdown closes shops and businesses, many of them are no longer getting paid, and without this income, they can't pay rent, get food, or even support their families. Desperate, some are even forced to go through rubbish heaps in search of food. As lockdown took full effect, unemployment rose from 6 to 23%. Without much choice, these daily wage earners were forced to travel back home, and with buses and train services suspended, some decided to travel by foot, which could be several hundreds of miles away, to often poorer and densely populated states of India. These states house slums, often overcrowded and have poor sanitation. Though those who can afford it can either buy or make their own masks, we know that social distancing and hygiene is far more important in combating the spread of the virus. So when the streets aren't even wide enough for people to stay 2 meters apart, it's virtually impossible. Historically, India's poor have been mistreated by the state, and with the coronavirus outbreak, things have been no different. Videos have emerged of police attacking and humiliating those breaking lockdown measures, making them do unnecessary exercises on the road as punishment. Returning workers were even sprayed with disinfectant that contained bleach, and others were locked up in cages. Fake news stories shared on social media have given rise to further abuse and attack against the country's Muslim minority. This has led to public beatings, their businesses boycotted, and even hospitals segregating wards based on religion and refusing to take on Muslim patients. In some ways, India was ahead of the curve by simply imposing its lockdown while the number of cases were relatively low. Projections show that cases could have skyrocketed otherwise. Prime Minister Modi has asked for his country's forgiveness after immediate lockdown caused mass disruption and announced a $2.2 billion support package for approximately 800 million of the country's poor. This included free food, cash handouts, wages, reduction in rent, and in some cases, transportation back to home states. However, this has only reached a small proportion of poor Indians, and as the lockdown was extended, thousands took to the streets in protest, having received little to no funding from the government. The spread of cases across India is still relatively low compared to European countries, but the shortage of tests mean that the figure could be much higher. With no real end in sight or a return to normality, the most vulnerable will inevitably be the hardest hit.